G'day guys and welcome to Raging Rhino. As most of you will know, when Disney took over Star Wars, they decided to decanonize the EU, which essentially you can't really do. But they decided to do that and chuck everything that was actually created for the EU in the bin to have their creative freedom and essentially come up with their own stories and their own EU. They did that not only to have creative freedom, but also too so they could have this surprise for Star Wars fans for some strange reason. So they could come up with their own stories and it would be surprising for all those people that had read the EU and know the stories, so they could come up with something different so that they wouldn't actually go into these stories knowing what was going to happen. So of course they came up with Star Wars: The High Republic. Now there's a couple of new trailers. I don't know how the High Republic works exactly. I believe it's 400 to 200 years before A New Hope, or before essentially the 6 movies. But what they're essentially doing by having this come out is rewriting the history from what we know in the EU. Now, of course, I've got it on the Star Wars page here, and you've got the quest of the Jedi begins. I don't know how it begins only 200 to 400 years before A New Hope or before the Phantom Menace, but I just wanted to go through and just show you some of the artwork. We've got the gallery here. This is Yaddle. Now, I wanted to show you a quick other picture here, and that's this one here, right? Now, yes, there are the similarities, the hair and everything like that, but I must admit, this artwork that they've been coming out with, and now I know that it says concept art at the top, but this is the artwork that they're coming out with for Star Wars. It looks absolutely pathetic to me. Like, Yaddle, when you actually go through and look at some of the pictures of Yaddle, she looks completely different. You know, like this picture here looks completely like different to what we're seeing for what they're coming out with in the High Republic. Let's go through and have a look at some of these other photos. Sky Graph, okay? This was another picture that they actually came out with. I don't know what this character is supposed to be, but another thing that I noticed in this image is the pointed lightsaber tip. And throughout this entire series of pictures that we get from essentially the High Republic, they try and make it like, even this image here, they're trying to make it look like the Knights of the Round Table or something. I don't really understand what the purpose is of the artwork, or what happened to the really good artists that were behind some of the Star Wars things that we've seen. I mean, you look at this lightsaber hilt and, you know, obviously they've tried to put a bit of a Dooku spin on it, and they've tried to flare out the edge of the hilt. I don't really know. The artwork to me just looks a little bit bland and average. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we've now moved into phase 2, and there's a couple of trailers that they dropped. So we're going to go through and we're going to watch. There's this main trailer here, and then there's some character trailers here that we'll go through and have a look at as well. So let's get into this and have a look. Centuries before the Skywalker
It is a time
saga.
of great exploration, when the steady blade of the lightsaber burns bright. The Jedi and the Republic venture into the farthest reaches of the Outer Rim, traveling further into the galactic frontier than ever before. They will encounter worlds locked in interplanetary war, and a group intent on setting the Force free. They will journey to a mysterious paradise planet, unspoiled and full of potential. But all is not what it seems. The nameless terrors lurk around every corner. The High Republic returns. The adventures continue fall 2022, available wherever books are sold.
Okay, so that's their main trailer for it. Now, there was a couple of images in there that weren't too bad. There was this one
The
here.
blade of the lightsaber.
Didn't look too bad, to be honest with you. Looks kind of normal. Looks a bit like Star Wars. But then there's so many images in there that are actually kind of like, I don't know what that ship's supposed to be. It's not too bad, I guess. This image here, I thought, what the fuck is that supposed to be? Like, again, what happened to the artists that actually make really good images, really good Star Wars images? They're all gone. The story, I don't really get. I hate the hilts that they're making like this with the the guard on the end of it, the tipped lightsabers. And there was the moment in this bit where they like mentioned setting the Force free. Let me see if I can.
Planetary war, and a group intent on setting the Force free.
A group intent on setting the Force free. It's kind of like, what does that mean? Like, the Force is everywhere. It surrounds us. It binds the universe together. And they're trying to find a way to set it free. There was this image too.
Serious paradise.
Like, it looks so blocky through the tree here. The artwork is just terrible. A lot of it too. And when you get to this creature, like, it's so bland and so average. And again, it's like I said before, they're trying to rewrite the history from the EU. You can't just decanonize something once it's canon. And I know that there's people out there that say that the EU wasn't canon. Well, I'm sorry, George never actually specified, oh, this is canon, that's not canon, because everything that was being created through Lucasfilm for Star Wars was essentially a part of the story. If he wanted to slightly change something when he brought it to the screen, yes, he wanted to do that. But he certainly thought that these stories moving forward were the chronological story of Star Wars. You go back to, how can you possibly say that Bane's era with making the rule of two isn't canon when it's referenced in the movies? You know what I mean? Like, how can you say that that's not canon when it clearly is? The Plagueis novel, which ties really well into the Phantom Menace. How can you say that's not canon? You know, there are so many stories. And then, of course, moving forward in the story, you've got Jaina and Jason Solo and Anakin Solo and Ben Skywalker and Mara Jade. Those are 100% canon. Those stories were fantastic and it told a very good cohesive story moving forward. And I believe that's what George would have done in regards to his 3 sequel movies that he would have come out with, telling their stories. He may have made a couple of little adjustments here and there in regards to it. He may not have. But it was certainly canon when everybody was reading it. And if it wasn't canon, how can Disney decanonize it? If it wasn't canon. Does that make any sense to you? How can you decanonize something that was never canon? Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, like I said, some of these images, they were okay, I guess, but like even this, like the hilt over here, just, what is that? What is that? Are they just trying to make these characters because it was centuries before the Skywalker saga? Are they trying to make it like, you know, the Three Musketeers or the Knights of the Round Table or something like that? It certainly looks that way with their garb and what they're wearing as well, especially in some of those images that I showed you earlier. Let's go to this character one here.
150 years before the Great Disaster, the High Republic embodied the ideals of exploration, technology, and peace. Hyperspace, a dimension of space used to travel across long distances at velocities beyond the speed of light, a mesmerizing means of transportation. Prospectors of the High Republic scout the galaxy for these safe throughways to maximize travel and trade. One such prospector is Sunshine Dobbs, who is
Sunshine Dobbs!
brilliant navigator and notorious gambler. When Sunshine gets in over his head, he finds himself on the run and in debt to a Force cult called the Path of the Open Hand. In order to bail himself out, Sunshine offers information about a mysterious world he discovered beyond the Outer Rim. Little does he know what he's just gambled with. Light years of exploration await in the High Republic.
His name is Sunshine Dobbs. I mean, people, like, I've talked a lot about hyperspace, and the people creating Star Wars don't actually understand how hyperspace works. They think it's like teleportation. You're just there in no time whatsoever. You don't need to use hyperspace lanes or anything like that. You can just go and arrive at your destination. And that's not how hyperspace works, especially if you watch the original movies. There's definitely time that takes place, hyperspace lanes, you know, like, especially in like Rogue One, for example, when when they're about to make the jump, and he's like, I haven't yet finished my calculations, and he's like, I'll make them for you, and boof, they're off into hyperspace. First of all, they're doing it from a gravity well, which doesn't make any sense because that will destroy the ship, but also too, like, what is the purpose of the blockade at the beginning of the Phantom Menace if you can just make a hyperspace jump from anywhere? It's because the blockade's blocking the hyperspace lane, so you can't actually get through it unless you get past the blockade. And again, you've got another image here of a fucking stupid lightsaber hilt with the guard on it. Absolutely ridiculous. How's that? His name's Sunshine. His name's Sunshine, and they're basically just talking about hyperspace throughout this. And he's a prospector. Like, how... and the names that they come up with, not just his name, but the name of that what's it called? Let me see if I can find it here.
He finds himself on the run and in debt to a Force cult called the Path of the Open Hand.
The Path of the Open Hand. Wow. Wow, how original. Like, I'm rereading through the Plagueis novel right now, and the names of characters are so unique, and they feel like Star Wars, to be honest with you. This just feels like, I don't know, a mixture between fucking Harry Potter and The Last Starfighter or something. It's just really parody. It's like, it feels like a parody to me. Let's check out the next one. Another character one here.
150 years before the Great Disaster, the High Republic embodied the ideals of exploration, technology, and peace. Zala Makri is the best the Jedi Order has to offer.
Hey, there's a decent name, Zala Makri. There's an interesting name. Find it funny that she looks like an elf.
The no-nonsense Zoikan is one of the few Jedi of her kind. Zala leads the Temple outpost on Port Haley, and she is tireless in her dedication to the Jedi Order. Calm and rational, Zala is a stabilizing force in the wildness of the frontier. When an important artifact goes missing, Zala follows a tip on the artifact's whereabouts to the outer rim world of Dalna. There, she uncovers a dark conspiracy about a local force cult called the Path of the Open Hand, and its leader's bewildering jewel, which is more than it seems. Mystery awaits in the High Republic. Path of the Open.
Like, even these aliens, the artwork, like, what is this? Again, I know this is for books and they're all still shots, so there's no animation to it or anything like that. But, like, they could definitely do a much better job with the artwork in that. That trailer wasn't too bad, I guess. Let's have a look at the next one, the last one here.
150 years before the Great Disaster, the High Republic embodied the ideals of exploration, technology, and peace. Living humbly on a commune on the planet Dalna is the Path of the Open Hand. At the center of this devout group is the Mother, their leader. She is lovingly surrounded by the Path's followers, the elders, the children, and the littles, and aided by her herald.
And the littles! The littles, not the younglings, the littles.
The Path believes the use and manipulation of the Force is dangerous. Doing so could have catastrophic results on the galaxy, and the Jedi, with their innate abilities, are a threat to the natural order of things. With their values disregarded, the Path seeks a way to uphold their tenets. But they may have gone too far. Trouble awaits in the High Republic.
And these are obviously supposed to be probe droids. They look nothing like probe droids, other than the fact that they're floating, got a couple of tentacle arms, and look a bit like a squid. Like, Star Wars has been destroyed. And they're trying to, again, like I said earlier, they're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to rewrite Star Wars. They're trying to rewrite the EU. And not that I'm reading these books or anything like that, but to me, they're failing. They're failing miserably. I mean, you can just look at the amount of interest that there is in things like Andor out there. How many people are reading these books? I'm curious. All the Disney Star Wars fans that are really enjoying Andor at the moment, are you reading these books? Because I know that I just keep going back to the EU and keep reading those stories. And those stories seem to be a lot better than this. Just from what I'm seeing on the screen in regards to visuals, but also too in regards to like the path of the open hand. What is all of this? What happened to the rule of two? And like, they could tell stories of these dark Jedi or Sith and some progression through the rule of two maybe. You know, that's the one thing that I do like about the Plagueis book is that it sort of takes a couple of time jumps to get to, like, when I say present day, I mean like the Phantom Menace, right? To get to the point where Plagueis takes on Palpatine as an apprentice. At the beginning of the book, you essentially get to see Plagueis kill his master. And the fact that his master was training another apprentice that went after Plagueis. These stories just seem so average to me. You know, apparently the Jedi is a threat to these people. These people don't look like Sith. They don't look like Dark Jedi. They're the path of the open hand. Whatever that is. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're reading any of the Knights of the Old Republic, what have you thought so far? You know, I saw one of the images from one of the comics that they came out with for this, and the guy's using a lightsaber in the tree, and then he sort of gets stuck in the tree. That's not how a lightsaber works. Again, the people that are writing these stories don't get the Star Wars universe. They don't get the lore, they don't get the continuity of it, and they certainly don't get the canon. Anyway, like I said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.